let's crack on with England, shall we? And Lee Carsley's audition hit a bit of a bum note on Thursday, didn't it, with the shock 2-1 defeat to Greece at Wembley, ending his 100% start as the interim manager. Could have been worse, couldn't it? If you saw the game, Greece had those 3 goals disallowed and 1 cleared off the line as they beat England for the first time in their history. Lee, I know you were there, and probably, like the majority of England fans, when they saw the team sheet, they thought, oh, look at this. You know, Lee's going for it. He's putting all these attacking players on the pitch at once. This is what we've been waiting for. A lot have been crying out for that. It was quite clear it didn't work on the night. Why not for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I seen the team sheet come out, I choked on my caviar because I was obviously sat in the royal box. But it was, I mean, yeah. Listen, when I seen the team and the squad that he'd picked, I was absolutely over the moon, if I'm honest, because I think, you know, we've had Gareth, obviously, that's been in control for quite some time, and there's been so much negativity around the national side, how we are defensive, we don't play enough of our attacking players, and to see the likes of, you know, Palmer, Gordon, Foden, you know, all of them players that are on the pitch. You know, you look at the 2 fullbacks in Trent and Rico Lewis, and you think, I like this, I really do. I think, yes, the one thing that did jump out to me is obviously we didn't have a centre forward on the pitch, but I do probably relate that to Lee working with the under-21s, where he did play a false 9, where they won the Euros at that level. And do you know what? I hate the way people sort of criticise and jump all over people when he's trying something different. Listen, you can say stuff what Lee said, and I think he's not one of them people who likes to really chat in the media, and he's not a media person, but unfortunately, if you're going to be an England manager, all of that comes with that job. And he said some things that people have jumped all over. But, you know, going back to the performance, it wasn't great, for sure. I know that, you know, and I'm sure Lee will look back and look through what he could have done better. I think it was screaming out for a number 9, Watkins or a Solanke. But, yes, I was pleased with what he did, and I'm glad that he actually did that. And I think it was a brave move for him because it was at Wembley, and we know you can easily be jumped all over, which he has been. But I liked what I seen. It was just a performance that just didn't match up to it.
Yeah, we'll come to that comment that has been jumped on when he used the word he'd hopefully be going back to the under-21s, and people are reading into that. We'll come to that in a moment. Just a bit more on the match, though. Gareth Southgate, much maligned in the summer, despite getting to another final, by the way, when he insisted on leaving the likes of Palmer on the bench, Gordon on the bench. He resisted the temptation to put them all on at once. And look what happens when we do. Was he right all along then, Gareth Southgate?
Well, I think the challenge is for the person after Gareth Southgate, because of the pressure and because of the criticism. I suppose subliminally there's always going to be that feeling, OK, maybe I have to do something different. Maybe I've got to try and do what people were asking, you know, Gareth Southgate to do. And as we saw with the performance, every good team has balance. You know, football's about balance. It's about the yin and the yang around defending and attacking. And if you can get the balance right, you're a very, very good football team. I think in a desperate search for pure attacking football, I think England got the balance wrong on the night. And that can happen with anybody. That can happen with any manager or any head coach. And it just left them too open. But you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't with the England job. And I think that's the challenge. Unless you win every single game, you know, you're always going to get criticism. And it's how you deal with that criticism, I think, is going to be massively important for Lee. And,
of course, in terms of that balance, it might have been different if England had been pinging in shots and scoring goal after goal, but still being caught on the break. But they weren't doing that. 2 shots on target in the whole game, Darren. I mean, Carsley admitted afterwards they'd only worked on it very briefly the day before. Is this worth persisting with? For example, Finland tomorrow. Do you think he'll try it again?
No, I don't. And I think that's something I didn't quite understand, because if Harry Kane's fit, for instance, he's not doing that formation. Regardless of whether he worked on it or not, if Harry Kane's fit, he would have started. So he would have played a recognised centre forward. I mean, to come out and say you only worked it for 20 minutes, that was another thing I thought you probably shouldn't have said that. And I was with Lee. I was quite excited about seeing him throw the attacking talent in, but I do think the kind of message that he sends, if you're Ollie Watkins, who for the last couple of seasons has been absolutely outstanding. I mean, last season was brilliant, scored a goal in a European semi-final for England. He's probably waiting for his chance for that opportunity. He's earned that right to get that opportunity. And when you then don't have your main centre forward and Harry Kane's not fit, you must be thinking, right, I'm next in line, I'm gonna get an opportunity. When you don't get that opportunity and you opt for someone else in your position who doesn't naturally play there, I wonder how the dynamics now is going to work between Lee Carsley, because if Kane does come back and he's fit for the game tomorrow, he's going to play. So then where does that leave kind of Ollie Watkins and Dominic Solanke, who started off the season well as well. So, yes, there were parts of the game which were quite exciting, but again, as Gaz said there, it is about balance, and I was more worried about out of possession. You can quite clearly see Cole Palmer's been brilliant playing further up the pitch as at number 10. When you try and put him alongside Declan Rice, it just wasn't going to fit. So I think there are a lot of people now looking at this England team and looking at the job Gareth done and think, do you know what? Maybe he had a point with the Calvin Phillips or the Mainu and the Declan Rice, so maybe it's not as easy just to put all his attacking talent in. So unfortunately for Lee Carsley, yes, he was in the running to get the England job, but I think on that night he just got it completely wrong.
Ryan, all these attacking players that it just didn't quite work. And Phil Foden, we could sort of select any player and question their performance on the night. Just doesn't look the same player for England as he does for Manchester City. And the stats show, I think it's over a year. It's 15 games since he last assisted or scored in an England shirt. We know how great he is for Manchester City. He's the Premier League's player of the season, for crying out loud. Why do we not see that for England?
I think it'll come back with Phil Foden. I think he'll get there. I think the new boy on the block is Palmer, as everyone knows, for England especially. I think, Phil Foden will get that mojo back, if you like. He's a world-class footballer, as you've just said. I think on Lee Carsley, I think he's been brave in what he's done. I think he's been fantastic bringing all the 21s up, because that's who he's worked with. We talk about Gareth Southgate having trusted players. Well, guess what? Lee Carsley's players were trusted for him as well, also at the 21s level, and he's tried something. I don't want to jump on the bandwagon where people are saying, he might have lost the job now on that. Give him the job, give him the reins. Teach him in the media stuff. Not everyone's good in the media. I've let myself down plenty of times. I'm sure Gary has. All of us have in the media. So give him that job. Give him an opportunity to shine. He's come through the programme, 21s, and like Gareth did, and give him a good opportunity to take the football, to take the nation to potentially winning a trophy, which we've failed by, albeit we've had to got to finals. And let him do his own thing. Let him put a stamp on it. Yeah, I'm with Lee and with Daz and all the lads that, it'd be nice to see a recognised striker on there, because they're the ones that get you the goals. But the likes of Palmer and everyone else who've been scoring these goals, and if Kane was fit, he plays, and it may not be talking about this, and England may go and win the game 2-1 instead of losing 2-1. So I'm a big believer in giving Lee Carsley an opportunity to take the nation forward, definitely.
Do you know, with Phil Foden as well, I do think, because his whole footballing education has been Pep and Manchester City, that's all he knows. I think it's difficult to take him out of what Manchester City do really, really well, and then simply put him into an England squad where he doesn't really know any of the players. He meets up with these players every couple of months. With Manchester City and the way that they play, he knows exactly, if he turns left, he knows exactly who's there. And it's about that system. Yeah. So when you expect to see that player come and play for England with other great players and expect him to be the exact same, you're never ever going to see the same, because they play completely differently. So I do feel a little bit for Phil Foden, because, listen, he's an outstanding player, PFA Player of the Year last year. But he's alongside Jude Bellingham, who just won the Golden Boy from last year. So he wants to play in that number 10 role. Cole Palmer last season scores over 20 goals. He wants to play in that 10. To all of a sudden kind of criticise Phil and say, right, why are we not seeing the same Phil Foden we see at Manchester City? I think there's so many different layers to that it's just a little bit lazy to say, well, why can't he do it? Because, as I said, he's at Manchester City. All he's known his whole career, when everyone was saying about Phil Foden, send him out on loan. He needs to go and play proper football. Pep said, no, leave him here. And he's turned into a wonderful footballer. It's just unfortunate that I don't think we'll ever see Phil Foden play as well for Manchester City as we do for England. Because
so what you're saying is we need Pep Guardiola as England managers?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Right. Hey, it wouldn't be the first lazy question I've asked, by the way, as well Darren. Just on Lee Carsley, the guys touched on it, the importance of that, being a media aware, I suppose, for any manager now. That comment, Lee, that he made, which has been picked on, when he said he'll hopefully be going back to the under-21s after these 6 games of charge, does that suggest to you he doesn't even want the job?
Listen, I don't think he doesn't want the job. I think, in a certain way, Jules, I really do think he's protecting his own, and I think he's got to, because, let's be quite honest, I mean, if he doesn't get the England job, then, lots of people would say, will he go back to the 21s? I'm not so sure, but I think the role that he's got at the moment is that I think he has to look after himself, because he hasn't got no security that he's going to be the England manager. And where does he go next? Does he take that step back? Does he move on to being a Premier League manager, a Championship manager? We don't know. So I think, as I said, listening to the way that Lee spoke in the media, he looks very raw, doesn't he? He looks like and he's not that way in kind. I mean, you know him, I know him well as well, and he's not that sort of person. He wants to get on with his job. He wants nothing to do with that as such. But that's where I have to reiterate, is that the job comes with all of that, and unfortunately, you are going to get criticised. Lee likes to be on the grass. He likes to do his coaching, which has been so successful for him to be even in the frame for it. But I don't think he does not want the job. I just think that evening in particular, I think everything come on top of him and he had to answer the critics.
I mean, in terms of who it might be, whether it is still Lee Carsley, it's only in one game, of course. He'd won the first two. We'll see what happens in Finland tomorrow. We can have a look at the odds for the next England manager. And Lee very much in contention at 9-4. Graham Potter, Eddie Howe, Pep Guardiola, if England want to wait till next summer and he's available. But the favourite is Thomas Tuchel. Some reports in Germany overnight that it could even have gone as far as talks with the FA. He is the favourite, Gary. Thomas Tuchel, England manager. Do you like the sound of that?
Well, they didn't put me at 50 to 1, so I'm a little bit unhappy. You can put the odds when it suits you guys, do you know what I mean? But,
are you 50s, are you?
No, 500 to 1. Yeah, look, I think it's amazing, isn't it? But you know, all the talk after the first two England games was Lee Carsley was going to get this job, and there was no one else in the sort of picture. After one game or one extra game, all of a sudden now all the talk is the next candidate. And that just shows how big the job is and how important it is to get it right. So I don't really care. I'll be honest, I don't really care who's England manager. I think it should be the best person for the job, because we're talking about taking the next step. And to take the next step after Gareth Southgate, for me, the only thing that truly makes sense is to go for someone who you think maybe has something a little bit more than Gareth Southgate. And you could argue maybe Tuchel's got that experience. So I think it's a credible name, certainly, but I don't think it's the only person that should be in the frame.
Yeah, and you've got a manager there who's won big tournaments in club management versus Lee Carsley, who knows these players, knows the England setup, Darren. How do you weigh it up?
Well, I think I agree with Gaz, as he's saying there, because like, what Gareth's done is he's got us to a point. But the reason why obviously Gareth is not there because he hasn't managed to get us over that line. So I think whoever comes in next, that's got to be the objective, because we don't really. If you believe Lee Carsley's the man to get you over that, then by all means give him the job. But if you think, yeah, Lee Carsley, we'll put him in charge because he can maybe get us to another final. Well, we don't need that. We've seen that. It's about, can you get over the hump? And I'm with Gaz again as well. He said that for me, he doesn't have to be English. I think if Thomas Tuchel is the best man for the job, regardless if he's German or wherever he's from, I think that's the best person for the job, because he's won the Champions League, he's won big trophies, he's got the experience, he's managed internationally as well in terms of the Champions League, the major competitions. If they feel he's the best man for the job and gives us the best chance of winning something, then yeah, I'm all for Thomas Tuchel.
Well, time will tell. Of course, Carsley in charge against Finland tomorrow, the fourth game of six that he knows he's at the helm for. He's going to have to make at least one change. Bukayo Saka definitely out of that game tomorrow, which is a bit of a concern for Arsenal ahead of the return of the Premier League next season. You can hear, by the way, from Carsley, and Mark Gay will be alongside him. He sat on the bench the other night. They are facing the media at 6:30 tonight in Finland. You'll see that live on Sky Sports News.